Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today with the information session for California State Parks. We had a lot of people register for the event, so we're going to wait just a couple of seconds here, maybe about a minute for people to log in. Again, welcome to this information session with the California State Parks. All right, thank you for joining us today. And hello and welcome to today's information session with the California State Parks. My name is Werner Petzold. I'm Employer Outreach Specialist at the University of Arizona Global Campus and 10-year U.S. Air Force veteran. We're excited you could join us today to learn more about the exciting career opportunities at California State Parks. Before I turn the floor over to Anthony and Carly, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded. For all those registered for today's information session, the recording will be emailed to you in a few days. We will take time to answer as many questions as possible during and at the end of the presentation. At the bottom of the screen is a Q&A button. You can submit questions with your name or anonymously to be answered live. We will do our best to get as many questions as we can. However, if your question is not answered by the end of the presentation, you can email it to Career Services. That's both words together, no dots, no spaces, both words mashed together. Career Services at uagc.edu. We will follow up with California State Parks to get any remaining questions answered. Also, feel free to engage in the chat. You can pose questions in the chat, and members of the Career Services team will be available to help answer questions throughout the presentation. If you have any technical difficulties, we recommend logging out of Zoom and logging back in. Now, I would like to introduce our guest employer. Joining us today is Anthony Bonilla, who is heading into his 4th year as a recruitment analyst at the California State Parks. He specializes in park maintenance, environmental scientist, and natural resource conservation careers. Anthony's passion is to empower job seekers by giving them the information, resources, and guidance to land the career of their dreams. Also joining us today is Carly Whitney, recruitment analyst. Carly has 6 years of experience in recruitment at California State Parks and currently focuses on careers in interpretation and cultural resources. Carly is passionate about engaging with communities and helping individuals discover rewarding career paths. She enjoys being a resource for job seekers, offering guidance and knowledge to help them navigate opportunities in public service. Anthony and Carly, we're excited to hear your presentation and thank you for joining us today. I'll go ahead and turn the floor over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Werner. Again, my name is Anthony Bonilla. I'm sorry I don't have my camera on today, but yes, I am going into my 4th year with this wonderful, wonderful recruitment team. Everything that I've learned, I actually learned through Carly Whitney. She was my mentor going into this position. But yes, we're happy to be here. And one of the biggest themes that we're going to do today is we're going to debunk a couple of things. First, we're going to debunk the state hiring process. We tend to learn that people that are outside of state civil service work, they tend to find the state hiring process to be difficult. We don't like to use the word difficult. We just like to think it's a little bit tedious. So it's our job to help you better navigate through that. And the second thing is that I know a lot of you are professionals in administration and careers like that. So that's another thing that we're going to have a really, really fun time debunking. We definitely can see the perception of our department on why people think that we're just rangers and lifeguards and things like that. While those are definitely some of our more popular career pathways, we are much, much more. So we're really excited to be here. And Carly, if you want to say a couple of things before we start.
Yes, absolutely. Again, thank you all so much for being here. Just to echo what Anthony said, please know that we are here to help you through this process. We are a resource to you. You will receive our contact information. Should you need any help going through this process, if you want to learn more about the careers that we talk about today, always feel free to connect with us. We're always happy to help. So with that, I'll turn it back on over to Anthony. He's going to lead us through our presentation. And of course, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll go ahead and answer those at the end of the presentation today. So thank you all again.
Awesome. So at this point, the presentation slides should be up. Is that correct, Carly? All right. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Hello?
Looks good. Yep. Looks good on my end.
Okay, perfect. All right. So we're going to go ahead and start the How to Start Your Career with California State Parks webinar. So in the agenda, we're going to go over a few important things. First off, who can assist you in the state hiring process? Along with myself and Carla, we have 3 other members of our recruitment team that are small but mighty. And we're going to talk about some other resources that we're going to share on how you can get assistance from us as well. We're going to talk a little bit about our department and why it would be a good fit for your career goals. More importantly, we're going to go over the career pathways with California State Parks. So please remember that this is going to be a very high level overview of our department. So if you do not see a career pathway that matches your career goals, do not worry when you reach out to us. Even if it's not with our department, you know, Carly will agree, we'll send you to the department that we know it's going to mostly relate to the career pathways that you're looking for. But if you don't see anything on the surface, feel free to reach out and we'll be more than happy to look at things in depth with you. Very, very important part. We're going to go over the steps to apply. I really, truly credit the recruitment team. And I'm going to tell you a little story about myself before I continue. But it's a very, very important that this is going to be the most important part of the presentation. So feel free to take notes, but we will be sending a follow-up email to Werner so that he can share with all of you as well. And then we're going to go over something else, statement of qualifications, cover letters, resumes, things like that. And then we will open it up for questions. So we're going to go ahead and get started. But before we do, let me tell you a little bit about why I believe so much in the recruitment team. So back in 2022, I had already worked a few years in the private sector for a marketing firm. I graduated with the California State University, Fresno with a business degree in administration with an emphasis in marketing. And when I went out to the workforce, I knew that I eventually wanted to be a state civil service servant at some capacity. I've always had a passion for the outdoors here in Fresno, California, where I work and live. Yosemite National Park, Sequoia National Park are just, you know, our backyards, right? But we do have some state parks. Millerton Lake State Recreation Area is a state park that I grew up going to. So I always knew that I wanted to go out and do something with, natural resources conservation careers at some point. So after a few years of earning my keep in the marketing world, I decided that I had enough experience to go out and start looking for state jobs. I reached out and Carly was the one who responded to me first, talking about the different resources that they offer. Now, she did pair me up with the coolest name you'll ever hear as a state park employee. His name was Forrest Gardens. Yes, that was his real name. And he went over all the different resources, information, and guidance that I'm going to teach you today that I truly believe got me the job that I'm currently sitting talking to you all in. It's the first job I applied to, not just for the department, but for the entire state. And I was privileged enough to get the position. So I'm a really, really big believer in it because at the end of it all, the main thing that you have to understand is that Werner and everyone else from the University of Arizona that are part of career pathways, right? Myself and Carly, we are here to help. So the more you reach out to us, the more likely you are to get that confidence and knowledge to put your best foot forward in any career pathway that you're looking beyond our department as well. All right. So who can assist you? So we can, right? Me, Anthony, Carly, and then Jose, which is Jose Hernandez, who is our law enforcement career pathways. We also have our recruitment manager by the name of Rachel Graff. She is actually returning back from maternity leave in a couple of weeks. So we're really excited for that. And in person at the Career Center that we have in the Sacramento area. So for those of you who are in the Sacramento area, we do have a Career Center that's in person that's now open. It's open Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And it's located at 715 P Street at the California Poppy Pavilion in downtown Sacramento. So some of the resources that we offer in assistance is application and resume review, career guidance, one of my favorite things, mock interviews, and tips for applying. Now, if you're in the Sacramento area, you're more than welcome to come down to the Career Center. walk-ins are accepted. Just know that if you're not in the Sacramento area, we do all of this virtually as well. We do what's called virtual one-on-one consultations, where we go in depth on what your career goals are and see what career pathways are going to be the best fit for you. In order to do this, you can reach out to us by connecting with us at recruiting@parks.ca.gov. And don't worry, we'll give Warner the information after the presentation to share with you all. But yes, that's a really, really good way to get started off to connect with us. So we do, when I say the recruitment assistance and the little bullet points that we just went over, that is just the tip of the iceberg. You know, we're really, really good at creating networking connections with job seekers and subject matter experts that are out in the field. So let's say you want to become an accountant and analyst, right? We do have accountants in our California State Park system, right? So we're more than happy to connect you with some of these subject matter experts that are already working out in the field so that they can tell you what their what their process was getting into our department and how it can help you be a little bit more efficient. All right, so a little bit about our department. So established in 1927, we are the largest, oldest, and in my opinion, the best state park system in the entire nation. Just as of last year in June, we had our 280th state park. So we have 280 state park units throughout California. If you are in the Modesto area, we just opened up Dos Rios in the Modesto area. So we're really excited for that. And we have a lot of different landscapes, right? As you can see on the slide, we have everything from rainforests to beaches, deserts, forests, and everything in between, right? So there's a lot of different landscapes that make up the California State Park system. Along with all these different landscapes, we have hundreds of different classifications, right? So something that I said earlier is that, yes, our California State Park rangers, our lifeguards, maintenance people, personnel, they are definitely one of our more popular classifications that are going to be in our department. However, we have much, much more. Whether you want to be a civil engineer, an account analyst, accountant, IT, everything in between. If you have a passion for parks, chances are we do have a career pathway for you. It just takes sometimes a little bit more digging to see what it is that you're going to be related to the most. And one of the things that we always share, and it's going to be a big theme in our presentation today, is that we're dedicated to environmental stewardship and sustainability. If you've had the pleasure of enjoying one of our state parks or national parks in California, you understand that we have some of the most beautiful landscape, not just in the nation, but I think in the entire world. So we want to make sure that these beautiful landscapes are preserved for future generations to come, right? So it doesn't matter if you're a recruitment analyst like Carly and myself, or a state park ranger that's out in the field. We always want to make sure that environmental stewardship is at the forefront of everything that we do. All right, so why work for California State Parks? So first, it's an inclusive culture. Right now, we're celebrating Latino Heritage Month, but we're always having different initiatives to make sure that the public understands that it does not matter what culture, background you come from. If you have a passion for parks, we want to talk for you, and there is a position for you. Also, career growth. I can speak on that personally. When I started in 2022, I started off as what's called a staff services analyst. After a year of working as a staff services analyst, I was then able to be promoted to what's called an associate governmental program analyst. And so that's something that I can definitely speak on. Now, I can't promise that every career growth is going to be as fast as mine was, right? Sometimes it's a little bit faster even. Sometimes it's a little bit slower, but that is definitely a possibility. Another thing is community engagement. I think me speaking right now proves that community engagement is definitely a possibility for classifications within our department, but it really just depends on what career path we end up choosing. If it's out in the at a state park, most likely you're going to be front facing with the public, and you'll be able to engage with the community. Another thing, right? The same thing that we talked about in the last slide, preserving our resources. You get to feel good knowing that your job makes a difference in making sure that our state parks are kept pristine and beautiful for future generations to come. And who wouldn't like that, right? And then finally, benefits and stability. You know, you are all in a very, very good program with the University of Arizona, and they want to make sure that you're set up for success, right? Whether it's with state civil service work or in the private sector, whatever it may be. We all know what the current economic landscape is within the country, and we know that there's a lot of validity in jobs right now, right? So what we can confidently say as of today, California State Parks is hiring, so it's always good to just reach out to us to see what opportunities are going to be available for you. All right. So now we're going to have a little high level overview about the benefits. Again, if you have any questions about some of these benefits in detail, feel free to send us an email at recruiting@parks.ca.gov or send your question over to Werner and they'll be happy to connect us. So work and life balance, right? At the very top, we have our CalPERS retirement package, which I believe is second to none in terms of retirement packages for any job. We have full medical benefits. Depending on the classification, we do offer commuter programs, employee assistant programs, paid holidays to those that served in the military, and Werner as well. Thank you for your service. We do have military leave as well. Student loan forgiveness for some of the positions. Again, I can't guarantee in every position, but in some cases, and employee wellness programs that are there to make sure that your mental and physical health is as best as it can be. Something that I've actually used myself. So very, very good benefits at the top with work-life balance. And we also have insurance. We have basic group term life insurance, state disability insurance, travel and accident insurance, and workers' compensation program. So that's just the tip of the iceberg of what we have with benefits. But as I said, if you have additional questions on some of these, we'll be more than happy to get that answer for you. All right, so now we're going to talk about the featured career pathways with state parks. And again, I cannot stress enough that there might be some positions that you're not going to see that relate to you. That's perfectly fine. These are going to be more of the popular positions that we have within our department, but there's definitely room to explore other career opportunities. So some of the examples on the top left corner is going to be our law enforcement. Our definitely most popular career pathway is our state park peace officer, rangers, and lifeguards. If you've ever been out to one of our state parks and seen some of our officers wearing their cool Stetson hats and uniform, those are going to be our rangers. We also have communications operators in the law enforcement realm. So those of you who have a passion for first responding, those are going to be our 911 dispatchers. Now we're going to get into the good stuff, right? On the bottom left corner, we have humanities and interpretation and education. So we have everything from our state park interpreters who educate the public on the cultural, natural, and historical resources of our parks. We do have archaeologists. Yes, that is a real thing. We've been asked that all the time, right, Carly? Carly specializes in recruitment for archaeology, and they always ask, can I really get an archaeology career with my degree? Definitely, and we see them all the time on Cal Careers as well. Historians, so those of you who have a passion for California history and want to teach that to the public, we have that as well. And park and recreation specialists. Now, park and recreation specialist goes a lot deeper than what you hear on the surface level. We have everything from grant writing, administration, law. There's going to be projects that have to do with environmental law that you're going to have to be familiar with, right? There's also going to be recreational programs that you get to formulate. And then finally, you can even create new parks for the community. So that's definitely something for those of you who are looking to do project management work that really, really relates to some of the career pathways that you may be looking for. On the right-hand side, we're going to continue with that theme and talk about our administrative roles. Carly and I fit under the human resources umbrella, because we're part of the classification and hiring unit. We also have exam analysts. We also have staff services managers, that supervise us as well. We have project managers. We have accountants, and then we also have analysts, right? So as it stands right now, Carly and myself, we are what's called Associate Governmental Program Analysts, but our working title are Recruitment Analysts. So that's going to be something that's going to catch a lot of your attention because the analytical roles have a very broad sense of what kind of specialties they do. We're going to talk a little bit later about our Cal Careers platform, and you're going to see that when you look up staff services analyst or associate governmental program analyst roles under the working titles, they're going to be different, right? They're going to be budget analysts, there's going to be contract analysts, there's going to be recruitment analysts such as ourselves, and a lot of different other career pathways. So that's definitely going to be something that you're all going to want to pay attention to because it's going to be a really good career pathway to consider. Further in the middle, I don't expect a lot of you to relate to this, but something definitely that's popular is going to be our facilities and maintenance. We have everything from heavy equipment operators, engineers, landscape architects, maintenance workers, and much, much more. And then at the bottom right, we do have our STEM career pathways, right? So we have engineers, civil engineers, we have information technology specialists, those IT people that Carly and I use on a daily basis. And then we also have environmental scientists. So if you have a passion for, natural conservation in an environmental science realm, that's definitely a career pathway for you. So I'll reiterate one more time that these are just some of the most popular career pathways that we do offer within our department, but please rest assured that we are very, very good in identifying what career pathways may be more relatable to you, whether it's with our department or not. That's something that we're never shy away from. If we believe that there's maybe a sister agency under the California Natural Resources Agency that may be a better fit for you, whether it's the Department of Energy, the Department of Conservation, CAL FIRE, or even another department that's outside the California Natural Resources Agency, right? Like Caltrans, things like that. We're more than happy to direct you in the place that we feel that's going to be more relatable to the career goals that you're looking for. All right. A really good way we say to start your career with California State Parks is through a seasonal. So we have everything from park aides, senior park aides, we have maintenance aides, forestry aides, guide trainees. For those of you who saw the interpretive role and then got interested, we also have park interpretive specialists, seasonal lifeguards, and much, much more. That's what I can say with confidence. We have everything from OTs, which are called office technicians. So that's something that's right below a staff services analyst that you can go into as well. And why seasonal positions? Well, we're going to go into a little bit later on what it means about having to take an assessment. But with a seasonal role, there's no assessment or exam needed. You do get hands-on experience, right? Because you're going to be working out in the field. And it's a good opportunity to build your resume and look really good when you start applying for full-time positions within our department or any other state department. So very, very good way. I'm proof, right? And I think if I'm not mistaken, Carly is as well. You don't have to go in a seasonal role. We just think if you're just getting out of college and you've never worked a job in your life, right? You've always gone to school. This is a really good way to get your foot in the door and into the workforce. All right, so now we're going to go by how to get started. This image always looks funny to me because it looks like a little toy town, but it is actually one of our state parks, I believe, out in Anza Borrego. All right, so here is the most important thing that we're going to talk about today, right? The good stuff, the steps to apply. With our department and generally with the entire state of California, there's a 3-step process, right? First is to create a Cal Careers account. Now, do not worry about all that because we're going to send Werner all the information and resources that we talked about today so he can share with all of you. So don't worry about, having to remember a link or anything like that. So you would have to create your Cal Careers account because that's going to be the portal that you're going to use to apply for different positions. Now, remember what I said earlier about not having to take an exam or assessment for a seasonal role? The rule of thumb is that for any full-time opportunity, there's going to be an exam or assessment. We use the word assessment because exam sounds, scary. And you are about to graduate college if you didn't already, right? So why would you want to hear the word exam again? I sure didn't when I just graduated from college, right? So you do have to take and pass the assessment that's associated with the classification that you're interested in. For example, Carly is an associate governmental program analyst, and so am I. We had to take and pass the AGPA exam before we were able to apply for these roles. Now, the good news is that once you get on what's called the eligibility list, right, you're able to apply for any one of those roles throughout the entire state of California. So the moment I was able to pass the AGPA exam, that means I had the right to apply for AGPA roles all over the state. So that's something to think about. Also, we're going to go in depth a little bit more in the next couple of slides, but please be aware that every exam and assessment is just a little bit different, okay? So we're going to want to make sure that we keep that in mind because some of them you're going to be able to take the moment you're done with this presentation, right? You could take it online right now after you create a Cal Careers account. And there's some that you actually have to submit an application that gets vetted to then be invited to take the exam. So just please keep that in mind. And then finally, after you've done taking, you've created your account, you've taken and passed the assessment for the classification that interests you, you apply through your Cal Careers portal by creating an application template and submitting it online. Yes, there's other ways you can do it. You can mail it in or you can send it in person. I strongly encourage against that only because doing it online is going to be very, very quick and instantaneous. All right, so step 1. Creating your Cal Careers account. This is what the Cal Careers account looks like in a nutshell when you're creating your account. You're going to have your email address. You're going to create the account right at the bottom. But as you can see at the top, you're going to put your first name, middle name, last name. I believe there's a section to put your social security number, but it's not mandatory. So if you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to put it in there. This is what I recommend right now. Now, I know a lot of you are students or are about to graduate from the University of Arizona. So what I recommend is that you create a brand new professional email address. I definitely used my California State University Fresno email when I first graduated and when I was applying for jobs. And now if I can go back, I would change that only because you just want to make sure you have a professional, clean email going forward, right? It's definitely an accomplishment that you're going to be a graduate from the University of Arizona, but definitely that's going to be a time and place for that, right? I always recommend just putting a brand new email address. Some other things to avoid in your email address. I see it all the time. Carly sees it all the time as well. Try to avoid putting 2-digit or 4-digit even numbers behind your email address. For example, 88, right? If I put my email address, anthony.bonilla88@yahoo.com, there's a good chance that that's probably going to be my birth year, right? So if it's something you don't have to share with an employer, I recommend you don't. So something clean. And if you do want to use numbers, I recommend something like a 3-digit odd, because that would be assumed to probably be a zip code or an area code or things like that. All right, so once you've created, this is more or less what your portal is going to look like. At the top, you're going to have your Cal Career ID, your email address, your mailing address, your name, and your phone number. Now, it's very, very important that you keep this current and up to date, because if you do get selected for an interview, you're most likely going to be contacted through email or phone number. So you always want to make sure that that is up to date and current. On the left-hand side, you're going to have little elements like your application template. This is very, very, very important. We always recommend to job seekers that they do indeed create an application template. Think of it this way, that it's a one-all be-all, right? So that you can, it's just a little hack that we like to say, so that you can use this application over and over, but we're going to go over some details on what you should change in every application template, but we'll go through that a little bit later. Further on, you're going to have everything from job applications. You can have uploaded documents where, that's where your cover letter or statement of qualifications can live. And then further towards the bottom, you have examination/assessment application. So if you're currently applying for an examination, it's going to live there right under that examination/assessment record. So let's say you took and passed an exam, it's going to show you what your grade is and how long is your eligibility. And what that means is how long you have on that exam list before you have to retake it. And then finally, on the bottom left corner, you have saved searches. So that's a really good way to not have to go at the very top where it says find jobs with a magnifying glass and search for a job every time, right? You can always narrow it down by your location, by the classification or career pathway, if you will, by the department, and then you can save it. So it can even give you email alerts. So whenever you do need, or whenever, a position does become available in your area, you'll be the first to know. So very, very good portal. It's not the latest and greatest, but we see it on a daily basis, so we know how to be more effective with it. So I always tell job seekers, if you're interested in learning a little bit more, I'm more than happy, and Carly's more than happy to set up a virtual consultation with you to go in depth on this CalCareers account, because trust me, if there's one thing Carly and I know, is that government websites can be extremely large, right? And extremely vague. So our job is to make sure that we teach you everything that you need to know and nothing that you don't. All right, so step 2, right? You've already created your CalCareers account, and the next step is to take and pass the assessment for the job that you're looking for. But before we go into that, there are some resources to help you with the assessment process. So the first one on the left-hand side is for veterans. So again, thank you for your service. There is something called Veterans Preference Benefit. It's for all eligible veterans that can receive a rank 1 with a passing score of 70% or better. So what does that mean, right? A rule of thumb is that usually the minimum passing score for our assessments is 70% or a C, right? Anything above that, you're automatically on the eligibility list. I think it goes without saying, especially because we're talking to university students, that you want to get closer to 100% as possible, right? Because it just makes you more competitive. Now, with Veterans Preference Benefit, as long as you have it, the moment you pass the exam with the 70% or better, you get what's called a rank 1 filing. So it's if you got 100% on the exam. So what you will need for that is a copy of your DD-214 as well as a completed CalHR Veterans Preference Form. So again, do not worry about having to search all this up if you're like, oh, I'm interested in this, because we will send the resources to Werner to share with all of you. On the other side, we do have something called the Limited Examination and Appointment Program, or LEAP for short. It's for all people with qualifying disabilities, such as ADHD, who may opt for an alternative assessment to demonstrate your qualifications. So it's special accommodations for people who need it, and what you will need is a proof of disability, as well as a Department of Rehabilitation certification. So if you have any questions on this, please feel free to reach out. But we'll be more than happy to help. But we will be sharing these resources with Werner to share with all of you. All right, so this is what an exam bulletin looks like. It's a typical exam bulletin on CalCareers. You can find one. We're going to go over for an associate state archaeologist right now, but these are more or less what they look like, right? So at the very top, you're going to see the Department of Parks and Recreation. Keep note of what it says. It says multiple testing departments, right? Please see list of departments. That's a very, very important piece of information to keep in your back pocket. Directly under that, you're going to see examination code, right? So it's EX 3355. That is a very important number because think of it as the exam ID for this specific exam. The final filing date, right, with that little yellow arrow pointing to the right. Applications are accepted on a continuous basis, but there are cutoff dates, and we're going to see further down on the page right now. And on the top right corner, when you're ready to, when you've reviewed the examination bulletin and you're ready to take the exam, you click on the Apply Now button. Now, further down on the page, you're going to see classification details, right? So what we always say, Carly and I always say to job seekers is that before you ever take an exam and before you ever apply to a job, it's very, very important that you see and you make that introspective decision on whether or not you think you meet or exceed the minimum qualifications for the classification that you're interested in, right? Well, starting from the exam bulletin, there's going to be definitely a lot of resources that you can use to help identify that. So as you can see with that little arrow pointing to the left, it's going to say view the Associate State Archaeologist classification specification. That is a very important link because it's going to talk about the job description, the typical tasks, as well as the minimum qualifications. So when it comes to the minimum qualifications, unfortunately, it is very, very straightforward in black and white. So if you meet the minimum qualifications, you automatically are able to take the exam and in theory apply for the roles, right? Well, the more you exceed the minimum qualifications, it goes without saying, but you are more competitive, right? If you do not meet the minimum qualifications, let's just say they're asking for a certain amount of years for a certain project management, that you need to do in order to become a state archaeologist. If you do not have that, they will not accept you into the examinations and ultimately into the application process. So it's something that's very, very important that you help identify. We're more than happy to help you identify. We've done that actually all the time. If there's something that there's like a question that you're not sure on, like, hey, Anthony or Carly, I'm not sure if I meet the minimum qualifications. Do you mind helping me out? We actually even sometimes reach out to our HR analysts that are able to disseminate that information for us. So definitely a helpful resource to check that link. Further down, you're going to see it say application instructions, right? So upcoming filing cutoff dates. So the next one, according to this one, is going to be November 30th, 2025, right? So that means that if you didn't turn in your exam application by May 30th, unfortunately, you would have to wait all the way until November 30th, next cutoff date for them to review it. So you could turn it in right now if you like to, but they're not going to be reviewing your application for the exam until after the 30th of November. So please keep that in mind, that the moment you identify a classification that you're really interested in, the most important next step is to make sure what the examination bulletin entails so that you can take the exam, because you want to make sure you take that and become list eligible sooner rather than later. As we go further down, it's going to give you further instructions on who should apply, on how to apply. And remember, like I said, you can do it in by email or in person. That's definitely something that we offer. I highly recommend doing online though, because it's instantaneous. Further down, see, you don't even have to click on the link. It gives you the position description, right? It's going to tell you what you're going to be doing in a general sense, broad sense in this position. Further information on the exam down below, right? The percentage of a final score of 100% with the minimum passing score of 70, and the knowledge and abilities that you're supposed to have in order to effectively do this classification within our department. Further down, see, you don't even have to click on the link, minimum qualifications. So it's going to tell you what patterns you can use in order to become qualified for the certain role. So don't get married to just these qualifications, right? Because the qualifications for a state archaeologist might be very different to that of an analyst. So always make sure that when you're looking at the minimum qualifications that you see what kind of paths, if you will, you can take in order to become list eligible, or, in order to meet the minimum qualifications. So definitely very, very good resource to just introspectively see and to go on to see if you can take the exam and ultimately apply for jobs. All right, further down, it's going to tell you the list information, right? It's going to tell you about veterans preference, the LEAP program, and then remember what I told you to put it in your back pocket, the testing departments. So in this case, for this position, right, there's the Department of Parks and Recreation as well as the state of California. So let's pretend that the state of California doesn't exist for there, right? It just says the Department of Parks and Recreation. If that were the case, that means that you can only apply to associate state archaeologist positions within our department, right? That's what it means. So let's just say if it said the Department of Transportation, that's Caltrans. If it was something for Caltrans, that means you could only apply for the role within the Caltrans department. Now, but because it says the state of California, that means it's also administered through CalHR. So what that means is that you can apply for any associate state archaeologist position throughout the entire state of California, regardless of the department. So our department or another department, whether it's CAL FIRE, Fish and Wildlife, Department of Conservation, or whichever, if they're hiring for an associate state archaeologist, you can apply for that job. So further down, if you have any questions about the exam, you can always reach out to the exam analyst. There's always their contact information there. But we always say reach out to us, because sometimes there's a question that we could definitely answer a lot sooner. Not saying that they won't answer quickly. It's just that the exam analysts are very, very busy, and we're more than happy to take that heavy lift and answer any questions that you may have. All right. So Carly, go ahead and let me know if you want to continue or if you want to pause it a little bit for questions, because I know that the chat has been active. So what do you think?
I think a good chunk of these can wait till the end. There was one that I saw about exams and preparing for exams and how to go about that process. If you want to cover that, since you kind of just talked about exams.
So when it comes to preparing for exams, most all of them towards the end of the page of the exam bulletin, they're going to give you information, right? Or a scope of the examination, if you will. That's very, very important because depending on the exam, they might even have a study guide with the questions that you can practice before actually taking the exam. Now, we always say it's very important to review the exam bulletin in its entirety because there may be some that are timed and there may be some that not, but most exams, whether they're timed or not, once you start the exam, you cannot move away from your computer and come back to it, like log off or turn off your computer, because it's going to record where you last left off. So always be aware of that to allow yourself some time. Usually, Carly and I, we always like to over prepare our job seekers so that we get an email saying the exam or assessment wasn't as bad as they thought. And in doing that, if it tells you that it's going to be, maybe an hour or two to allow yourself, give yourself that hour or two, or maybe an extra hour or three. We don't suspect that you'd spend that long. It's just that just in case something arises right where you have to, step away from your computer momentarily, it's always a good idea to allow yourself that time. Also, you always want to make sure that you put your best foot forward when you finally decide to take the exam. Always make sure that you're free from distraction, right? That, if you have children, spouse, or family, or whatever it may be, or a roommate, that you always make sure that you have the time and the environment to make sure that you're fully concentrating, because depending on the exam, I believe the minimum, right, Carly, to retake an exam after you've passed it, whether you've passed or failed it, is 9 months, and I've seen it be up to a year or two. So you always want to make sure that you review that exam bulletin, because once you've taken and passed it, even if it wasn't the best grade that you may have wanted, you do have to wait a minimum, I believe, of 9 months to a year before you can retake it again. So it's very, very important. And again, we are more than happy to review that examination bulletin with you, because trust me when we say there's not an exam that's the same, right? Depending on the classification, it could be entirely different from one that you saw before. So very, very important. Hope that answers that question. Is there another one?
Yes, I think those are good. Some of them I think you'll answer in the next couple slides. So I think you're okay to move forward.
All right, perfect. So we're going to move on. All right, so step 3, right? We already talked about the stuff that's probably not the most exciting, right? Creating that Cal Careers account, taking and passing the exam. But now you're going to be able to apply for the job, right? So you've gotten all your ducks in a row, and now it's time to apply for the job of your dreams. So some of the things we always say is to visit livetheparkslife.com. That is going to be our recruitment page. That's where you can learn all about our parks jobs. We also have a career resources page where we have our assessment schedule and much, much more. So we're more than happy to assist you in navigating through that as well. But this is a really, really good starting point. And then obviously Cal Careers, because that's going to be the formal application website, as well as a way for you to search for open vacancies. So if there's something you didn't see and you already want to start doing your own research, livetheparkslife.com is definitely the first place to start. All right, so this is going to be what a typical job posting looks like, and we're going to go over a little checklist, right? We're going to go over the job control number, what that is, the salary, the final filing date, the reporting locations, which is going to be something very, very important, housing availability, the contact information of the hiring unit, and then the most important thing we're going to talk about today, the duty statement, as well as minimum requirements and the application package checklist. So the very top, you're going to see our Department of Parks and Recreation. Right below that, it's going to be the job control number, or JC number for short, 411993 for the Guide Training Historical Monument. This is a seasonal role, right? That is going to be very, very important because that is the job ID, right? So just like we talked about the exam code earlier, this is the job code, the job ID for this specific role. So if you ever go on Cal Careers and you look up Guide Training Historical Monument, there might be 20 of them, right? Well, you want to make sure that you get that JC number down so you know which one you specifically want to apply to. Further down, you're going to see the salary, right? Is whether it's hourly or monthly, it's going to state right there. And then the final filing deadline, right? So it says right here, 4/20/2024. Let me tell you, and let me debunk some misconceptions about the final filing deadline. So first off is that there's usually a published date and a final filing deadline on the Cal Careers website, right? When you look for jobs. A lot of people believe that if they turn in their application closer to the publishing date rather than the final filing deadline, that somehow gives them an advantage. Now, I can see why that's perceived in the private sector, right? Because, for early bird gets the worm. But what I can confidently say is that as long as you turn in your application within the window of when it was published on Cal Careers and the final filing deadline, that is all that matters. I'm proud to say that I've applied to 6 different jobs with four different departments in the state of California since I've gotten this role. And I've gotten interviews to 5 of those 6 applications. And I've turned in every single one on the final filing deadline, including this one that I currently hold. So what we've been told by our analysts that eventually look at your applications, that's one thing I do want to share, that yes, a human being still look at our applications in our department. So that is something that we're going to be very, very passionate about sharing with you, especially when we talk about the duty statement a little bit later. But yes, we've been told that as long as your application package demonstrates that you meet or exceed the minimum qualifications and you turn it in within the window, that is all that matters, because they're going to look at your application just as diligently as they did for the first one. Okay, so please rest assured on that. The second misconception about the final filing deadline, as you can see, it says the final filing deadline for this role was 4/20/2024, right? That means in theory, you have until the end of day, 11:59 p.m. on the 20th of April on 2024 to apply for this job. Now, goes without saying, right? You never want to turn it in at 11:59 p.m., just like you wouldn't turn in an assignment, right? Because that's always when our computer crashes or our internet goes down. But you do, in theory, have most of the day. So feel free to use that final day to just finally, dot all the I's and cross all the T's, so you make sure that you put your best foot forward. So as we continue down, up, you're going to see the Apply Now button, right? When you click Apply Now, let me teach you a cool little hack. If it's for a job that's full-time, right, that's going to need an exam, but you're not sure you've taken and passed the exam for that classification, when you click on Apply Now, it's going to ask you a question. It's going to say, can I apply for this job? And it's going to give you 3 elements. It's going to say, I have eligibility, I want to obtain eligibility, and then finally, I'm not sure, learn more. I always say click on I want to obtain eligibility, because then it will give you the link to the exam that you're supposed to take. Once you click on that link, as long as you're logged into your Cal Careers account, either do 2 things: tell you exactly what your grade is and show you that you're listed eligible, or it'll give you the instructions to continue on and take the exam. If it's the latter, that means that you haven't taken the exam yet and you must take and pass it, right? So it's a cool little hack just in case you wanted to know. Further down, you're going to see in yellow the guide trainee historical monument. It's a seasonal position for the Capital District for the State California Capitol Museum, right? Further down, the primary reporting location. So for this location, it's at the State Capitol Museum, so that's where you're going to be working, right? For those of you who are looking for analytical roles, especially those that may offer hybrid or fully telework or remote positions, you always want to make sure that it states that, right? Because what I don't want happening is that you may be living somewhere in Southern California, but the job that you're applying to is in Sacramento. If it doesn't state that they offer hybrid or fully remote work, you want to make sure that you reach out to the hiring unit contact to get that in writing, because if that's not the case and you apply and get the job, you would have to report to Sacramento if it's something that they require. So always keep that in mind. Further down, it's going to tell you whether state housing is not available. I will be honest and transparent with all of you that most analytical roles, like the ones that Carly and I share, or HR, civil engineering, things like that, right? Professional roles, most of those positions don't offer state housing. These are usually reserved for positions that are out in the field, right? So our California State Park Peace Officer Rangers, our maintenance crew, our state park interpreters, and things like that. And it's usually also for state parks that are a lot more remote or in rural areas where commuting from the closest city is just not possible. So just keep that in mind. If you have any technical questions about the job, right? Let's just say the scheduling or things like that. We always recommend you reach out to the hiring unit contact. These are the people responsible for, reaching out for an interview and ultimately offering you the job. So any technical questions that you may have about the position, always reach out to them. If there's any questions that you have about what makes like the best candidate, we always say reach out to us first, because we already know how to put your best foot forward. So you want to make sure that you reach out to us first if it has to do with actually applying for the role. The duty statement, right? So the duty statement is going to be a very, very important piece of information. I argue the most important piece of information we're going to talk about today, because it's going to talk about how you can just help elevate your application package so that you can be seen a lot more by the hiring unit. And then the minimum requirements, I think by this part of the presentation, I think we can all agree that there's plenty of times and chances for you all to determine whether or not you meet or exceed the minimum qualifications before you apply for the role, right? Because there's a lot of different links that are available on each page to make sure that that's the case. And then finally, additional documents, right? So there's a cool little link of a application package checklist that you can use to just make sure that everything that needs to be included in your application is there. All right, so the duty statement, right? This is going to be what a general duty statement looks like. It's a very, very important piece of documentation, because it's going to be telling you by percentage, as you can see on the left-hand side, what you're going to be doing on a daily basis in your role, right? So what you want to do is carefully review the position description and the job duties. And what you want to do is that any relatable duties that you see that relate to your own work experience, you want to utilize the duty statement by completing your application and using the key terms and buzzwords, right? So for example, on the left-hand side, right, where it says education and interpretation, 40%, right? And the first bullet point says, guide trainee will work with the Guide 2 supervisor and will learn various methods of interpreting historical facilities, sites, and objects, right? Let's just say Sally says, hey, Anthony, I know how to do that. I know how to interpret historical, sites, natural sites, and different cultural sites of California state history. Well, you want to use that in your application, right? I even say copy and paste it over into your application. Now, you don't want to just leave it like that, right? Because you want to tailor it and make it fit your own narrative within your own work experience. But anything that you see on that duty statement that directly relates to your own work experience, we highly, highly encourage that you put that over into your application. It's something that Carly advised me to do when I was looking for a position, and when this job became available, I used it, and it's pretty safe to say that it works, right? We've also worked with job seekers that for the longest time, right, they were like, oh, Anthony, I don't see any luck in terms of getting callbacks for an interview. We revitalized their application by making sure that they used the elements of the duty statement as much as they could into their application. And they saw a jump in contact letters, right, for interviews. So it's definitely something that I believe it's the most important part of the application process because, like I said, the classification and hiring analysts, those are going to be the ones that are going to be looking at your application. Now, what we've been told by them is that under the application package, right, there's going to be duties performed section in a job that you're going to put in your application history. Under the duties performed, there's up to 1,500 characters allowed. If by the end of those 1,500 characters, you actually have to, delete some stuff out in order to fit all 1,500 characters, that is a good problem to have. More is more in the application. I cannot stress that enough. If you could be the most professional person with a outstanding resume and outstanding application, but if you just put on your duties performed section of a certain analytical job, right, that you said, I've served as an analyst for company ABC from 2007 to 2011, right? That's not going to be good enough because you're going to want to make sure that you put as much detail as possible. These analysts, they're not here to deny you the vetting process, right? On the contrary, they're here to make sure that you do meet or exceed the minimum qualifications, but they can only do that by the information that they provide. So very, very important piece of information. I always say if you have the means for it, you print out this duty statement and you just start highlighting everything that is just familiar to you and that you recognize as translatable duties that you could put into your own application package. Very, very important. All right, so sometimes there might be something that's needed called a statement of qualification. So what is that? It's a written prompt to demonstrate your knowledge, skills, and abilities for a specific job. It's required for most state jobs, and if it's not included and it's required, your application will be automatically disqualified. It is used as a screening tool and does not take place over a cover letter or resume. So let me stop reading the bullet points for just a second. When I applied for this specific role, Carly, if you want to say really quick, did you have a statement of qualification when you applied for this position as well?
I did, yes.
Okay, yeah. So we both had statement of qualifications, right? And I think we can both agree that in that statement of qualification, they told us exactly what font they needed, right? Whether it was 12-point font, 11-point font, whatever it was. But they had a very specific set of instructions along with some questions that they asked us on why we're a good fit for the role, right? The reason why that's very, very, very important, everyone, is because it's a screening tool, so you have to follow it exactly the way they're asking. Do not overachieve. I repeat, do not overachieve. Whenever we've worked with people who, got screened out over statement of qualifications, we realized that they were overachieving, and that's a detriment to them, right? Because if they're asking for no more than 2 pages, but you give 3 pages, it's showing that you weren't following directions, right? I know it seems silly, but you just want to make sure it's exactly the way they want it. Also, do not be married to the requirements of one statement of qualification and think that's the same across the board, even if it's the same classification, right? So I'm sure that Carly's probably said 12-point font with 1-inch margins and 2 pages. Mine could have easily said 11-point font with 1/2-inch margins and 1 page, right? So you always want to make sure that when you see a statement of qualifications, you follow it exactly to what they're requiring, but that you're not married to those requirements because it might be something completely different if you apply for a different role. If the statement of qualification prompt is broad, for example, they ask you what makes you qualified for this position, make sure you tailor your response. And how can you do that? Oops, I meant to put, go back to the other page. Whoops, let's see. It's not letting me, but we'll just keep it here for now. Okay, Carly? So the duty statement, right? The duty statement is going to be a very, very useful piece of document that you can use also for your statement of qualification, because you want to make sure that you reflect that I am the perfect person for this job because I relate as closely to the duty statement as possible, right? So the statement of qualification is a very, very important piece of documentation that you're going to need. Now, remember, it may not be required for every job that you apply for, even if it's the same classification, right? Let's say you wanted to apply to become a state park interpreter. There's a good chance that they might ask you for a statement of qualification in one of the state park interpreter positions, but not in another one that you're going to be applying to. So please keep that in mind. So, and again, it does does not take place of a cover letter or a resume. There may be a job posting that you're going to see that they're going to require your California state application, a statement of qualifications, a resume, and a cover letter, right? There may be a mix that only asks you for your resume, your statement of qualification, or maybe a statement of qualification and a cover letter. What they'll always ask you, though, what will be absolute, is that you're going to have to turn in your official California state application. Everything else, it just depends on what that hiring unit's requiring. So it's very, very important that you look over the job bulletin in detail. So we are at the last page of our slide. Thank you so much to everyone for being a part of this presentation with us. We are really, really happy that you were able to join us, and we hope that you learned and got inspired on living the Parks life. So we'll open it up to some questions because I know we still have some time. And if you want to go ahead and read some of those, Carly, and we'll get them answered.
Yes, absolutely. Let me go back up to the top to see if there's any in there. There were a couple questions about it being recorded. Yes, this is recorded. You should be receiving a copy of that. And of course, if you've ever have questions, recruiting at parks.ca.gov is the best way to reach us. There were some questions about benefits. Is there a 401k package benefit? Let me see, there's one more about benefits. What we typically recommend is visiting the CalPERS website. Everything you need to know about benefits that are available to you with the state can be found on there. The state offers a Savings Plus program, which you can contribute to a 401k or a 457B, which is available. That is separate from the state's pension program, so just keep that in mind. But if you want to learn more about the benefits, I always recommend going to their site, connecting with the individuals over there. They'll be able to answer all of your questions regarding that. I think there was another question in here about the CalPERS retirement and if you're able to actively still collect it if you are maybe getting another position with the state. Again, I always err on the side of caution. Connect with CalPERS and the department, ours, if you decide that you're going to work for state parks. A lot of times you will have to take on maybe a part-time role. Sometimes it cannot be a full-time role just because of that retirement. It gets a little dicey there. So I typically recommend reaching out to CalPERS directly so you can get it in writing from them. What is the best way to go about that? So keep that in mind. And then we talked about exams. Let's see here. Is the classification exam the same throughout all state departments? Anthony did kind of touch on this. So like Anthony went over the archaeology assessment today. That one is specific to state parks, so that's kind of run through our department. If there is a mention of the state of California, that means is a department-wide exam. A lot of the analysts, I know many of you had mentioned kind of an interest in maybe those admin analyst roles. Most of those are going to be open with the state of California. So you'll find a lot of those on CalCareers, and usually those are the online assessments that you can take anytime. So if you're curious about what those assessments look like, feel free to go onto CalCareers today. You can go through those assessments and start prepping for them. I know the staff services analyst specifically is, again, a great entry role, like Anthony was saying, into the state of California. It's a great way to get your foot in the door. That one does have a study guide associated with it. So we can always connect you or help you locate that study guide, but it will be available on that bulletin. Let me see here. Any other questions? Let's see.
I wanted to ask Carly, because there's students always and alumni always want to prepare themselves so they're effective for the jobs that they apply to at California State Parks. So one of the questions I saw here anonymously is with increasing use of technology and data systems in park management, what skills are most important for new graduates or early career professionals to develop? What would you recommend?
Anthony, did you want to take that one?
Sure. I would say is project management skills, because there's going to be a lot of different programs. For example, if you want to do something with accounting, we have what's called our Fiscal program. So definitely just boning up on some of the general, Microsoft Office suite and other programs that are more related to your specialty or your career field, because project management is going to be one of the most important, because once you go in with our department, believe it or not, there's a lot of room for learning. I can honestly confidently say that whenever you do graduate college and go out into the workforce, you could be a civil engineer. You could have been top of your class. I use civil engineer because my uncle's a civil engineer, and he tells me the exact same thing. it doesn't matter if they're the valedictorian of their class, when they enter the workforce, it's like they have to relearn everything again, right? So we always just recommend that you look at what the current or contemporary programs that are being used in your field, and just being as familiar as you can with them, because there is internal programs that you would have to basically learn or relearn within our department and other state departments in California.
Got it. And I totally agree with the project management thing. We see that with a lot of
Yeah.
employers. So absolutely, Carly and Anthony. So it's
Mhm.
getting close to the time here. We're only a minute away. I want to go ahead and let everybody know attending. If you want to connect with California State Parks and other organizations that are actively hiring, please log in to your Handshake account through your student portal. We recommend checking Handshake, UAGC Connect, and your email regularly for more career services events. A reminder, you will receive a follow-up email with a link to this recording and the information about careers at California State Parks. If you have any questions for the Career Services team on your resume, cover letter, or job search, please email Career Services at uagc.edu or log in to Handshake through your student portal to explore more resources. Please take 1 minute to hang on at the close of this information session. You'll be directed to complete a quick confidential survey. Your responses will guide us in planning future employer information sessions, career fairs, and events. If you're unable to complete it now, the survey will also be emailed to you with a copy of the recording. Many thanks again to Anthony and Carly at the California State Parks for joining us today. And many thanks to you, our students and graduates, for attending the UAGC. Thank you for attending this event today, and we look forward to seeing you at more Career Services hosted events. Everyone have a great day. Thank you so much, Carly and Anthony.
Thank you
Of
for having us.
course. Yes. Thank you so, so much.
Take care, everybody.